Hi folks, it's Brian here, back with another episode of Chakras to the Stars. And in fact, this is somewhat of a final episode in a way. I may or may not go on and make a few more videos about this topic after this one, but this is the video in which I'm actually going to bring everything together, everything that we've been learning so far. And by the end of this video, you will be able, I promise you, to do your own astrological chakric analysis. Call it chakrastrology or astro chakras or whatever you want to call it, but basically you will know how to bring together the information in your natal birth chart. We've talked about that in previous videos and how to get it. All the information is in previous videos. And also your chakra system and how your planets in your natal chart relate to your chakras. All will be revealed. I want to let you know that this information is not information I've just made up or pulled out of thin air. It has actually come from some very mystical and deep thinking people whose work I think is really pretty fantastic and interesting. So I'll share with you some of the resources that are worth checking out in relation to this, and then we'll go through the process of getting to grips with how to bring together tarot, tarot, yes, in a sense, because if you bring astrology into the mix, then you bring tarot into the mix, because many of you will know, of course, that tarot cards have or can have astrological correspondences. So if your interest in all of this is actually a bit more towards the tarot side of things, and mine certainly is lying in that direction, then it's more than possible to include tarot in the mix, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So bringing together astrology and chakras and a bit of tarot mixed in there too. So this information has actually come firstly to me via a chap called Ray Grass, and that is him there. He is an astrologer who wrote the book The Waking Dream, Unlocking the Symbolic Language of Our Lives. A very interesting book. He also wrote another book called Signs of the Times, I think it's called, or Sign of the Times, and that looks at the astrological ages, so how astrology defines different periods in human history. And he also wrote another book called Under a Sacred Sky, which is a book of essays on the practice and philosophy of astrology. Very interesting book. And in both of these books there is information about Ray Grass's approach to bringing together astrology and the chakras. And Ray actually learned this information from a chap that he studied under, a very little known chap, but a respected mystic in particular circles, and that's a chap called Shelley Trimmer. And this book is actually by Ray Grass as well. It's called An Infinity of Gods, Conversations with an Unconventional Mystic, and basically it is a transcript of various conversations that Ray Grass had with Shelley Trimmer over several years. And just so you know, Shelley Trimmer was a disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda, who wrote Autobiography of a Yogi. And this book is based primarily on transcripts of conversation between Shelley and Ray Grass during the late 70s and early 80s. It offers a glimpse into the wide-ranging thoughts and insights of this unusual teacher. Among the topics covered are meditation, magic, future science, astrology, psychic phenomena, sex, relationships, enlightenment, and God. So all kinds of really interesting stuff there. Now, a couple of diagrams I want to show you just as a way of orienting ourselves into this discussion, and then we'll be heading over to my trusty whiteboard where I'll be running through how to pull together your astrological information and your chakra information. So the first diagram that I want to show you is this, and this is what's known as the Natural Zodiac. Now, many of you will remember, I'm looking around to see if I have my diagram to hand. Yes, I have. Here it is, just a quick, sorry, I nearly head-butted the camera there. This is a birth chart, my birth chart in fact, and the information on here, as I described to you in my previous video, or one of my previous videos, is that if you are looking at a birth chart, then here, which is where your ascendant is, this tells you which sign is rising over the eastern horizon at the time of your birth. And then the planets all go, or rather the signs rotate that way, and they set over the western horizon, just like the sun does. Rises in the east, sets in the west. That's the plane of the horizon there in relation to where everything was at the time of your birth. So in my case, I was born quite close to the middle of the day, sometime after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and therefore, as you would expect, my sun is up there, just past the point of the zenith of the horizon, just tipping over the point of noon. So it's you can tell just from this that I am an afternoon baby, and I was born during the day because my sun is up there rather than down there. If it was down there, it would mean I was born at night because the sun would be on the other side of the world, but it's not, it's here. So that tells you quite a lot of information just if you understand the spatial aspect of the horoscope wheel. So that's my zodiac wheel. This is the natural zodiac wheel, and the way that this works is it places on the ascendant point, let me just check I've got this the right way around, on the ascendant point, which is there, the sign that is just about to go up above the horizon there is Aries. So that's moving upwards. So at the time of the vernal equinox, the spring equinox, Aries is the sign that is beginning to rise up over the horizon. And then what we see is all of the signs aligned after Aries in order. So in terms of the order that they would pop up over the horizon. So first of all, Aries pops up over the horizon, then Taurus. And you see, of course, Aries is represented there by the ram, as you would expect. Then we have Taurus represented, of course, by the bull. Then we have Gemini represented by the twins. We have Cancer represented by the crab. We have Leo represented by the lion. Virgo by the virgin. Libra by the scales. Scorpio by the scorpion. Sagittarius by the archer. Capricorn by the goat. Aquarius by the water bearer. I nearly said water cooler then, water bearer, and Pisces by the fishes. So starting at Aries and going around that way, you see the order of the signs of the zodiac, and that's the order of people being born. You know, so Aries people first, then Taurian people, then Gemini people, then Cancer people, Leo, etc., etc., etc. So that's the natural zodiac. Now, in one of my previous videos, I talked to you about how to understand astrological signs and astrological planets, and one of the ways that we can understand them is by understanding which planet rules which sign. And in ancient astrology, all signs are assigned a ruler. They all have a ruler for their particular planet. So we know, for example, that Aries and Scorpio are ruled by Mars, etc., etc. Now, here is another interesting little thing. Bear in mind the natural zodiac, and I'm going to show you another diagram, and it's a diagram from Ray Grass's book The Waking Dream, and this is a diagram that sets out all of the traditional rulerships for the signs. And you'll see it's a rather nifty diagram because all of the signs are there still in their correct order. So if we go back and we find where is it? I'm trying to do this back to front. There's Aries, and there's Taurus, then Gemini, then Cancer. So that's the correct order of the signs. So the signs haven't been jumbled up in any way. And you see that while they're in that order, the rulerships of the traditional planets neatly fall in line. So your Libra, for example, is in line with Taurus, and both of them are ruled with Venus. And this is, believe it or not, the natural zodiac. It's just that it's tilted round. So basically this has got Leo and Cancer at the top, and whereas the natural zodiac has Leo and Cancer down here, if we just rotate them round, I'm not changing the order of the signs, I'm just changing the positioning of them, we find that they naturally fall into their pairs with their ruling planet. So there's Libra and Taurus, and their ruling planet of Venus fits in there in this diagram. So what that shows you is, in terms of traditional astrology, rulerships were not just assigned arbitrarily. And what I find fascinating is that we've got this defined order of signs. If you twist the wheel in a particular way, then the ruling planets can be lined up with pairs of signs. So the integrity of the zodiac itself is maintained, and the relationship in time between each of the signs is maintained. And now you see a commonality between specific pairs on that wheel and their ruling planets. And then when you consider that actually the ruling planets very often they make sense in terms of which signs they rule. So, it makes sense that Mercury rules Gemini, and to some extent that it rules Virgo. Certainly in terms of Gemini, flighty, airy, information focused, like Mercury zipping around the cosmos or around the pantheon of the gods, carrying information. And even Virgo. Virgo is now I'm saying Virgo from the point of view of being a Virgo ascendant and a Virgo moon. So I do not mean anything pejorative by this, but Virgo can be pernickety. Virgo likes things just so. Virgo is obsessed with detail, and Mercury zip, 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 obsessed with detail, fine, minute detail. So there's a commonality there. Mars ruling both Aries and Scorpio. Aries, you understand, because it's a fiery sign, punchy Mars, punchy Aries, but even Scorpio, sting in the tail. You don't mess with Scorpio, you don't mess with Mars. And even the symbol, the Mars symbol with a point and the scorpion tail with a point, there is a correlation. So that's one of the fascinating things about the way that astrology is a system that fits together within itself in a way that's really interesting. So I wanted to give you that as a little introduction, because this bears fruit when we come to look at the way that the chakras are aligned, and that is what we're going to do now. So please join me at BCC's magical whiteboard for the next part of this episode of Chakras to the Stars. Okay, so here we are back over at the whiteboard, and as you can see behind me on the whiteboard, I have got various symbols, and some of them you'll recognise straight away given what we've just been describing. So I've got the signs aligned around the sides here, and I've got them lined up the way that I showed you in that diagram from Ray Grass's book. So I've got it twisted round so that Leo and Cancer are at the top, and then the pairs of signs are joined together by their ruling planet. And what I've got up and down the middle is in fact the ruling planet. So here we have Capricorn and Aquarius at the bottom, both of which are ruled by Saturn. And in the small writing down here, I've also popped down Uranus. Here for Jupiter, I've also got Neptune, and here for Mars, I've also got Pluto. The reason I've got those three symbols there is that those are the modern rulers for these signs, or at least one of these signs. So Uranus, for example, rules Aquarius in modern iterations of astrology, and I explained in a previous video, I'm going to move that back a little bit, I explained in a previous video, better, that modern rulerships are perfectly valid, just as traditional rulerships are perfectly valid. Some people only use one or the other, and some people combine them. For the purposes of this, because we are talking about the traditional pairs of planets and their traditional rulers, I am not going to be talking about these modern, newer planets in relation to these pairs of signs, because that's not the system that this is derived from. It's just derived from the traditional system. So if you're into the modern planets and you use them, by all means include them as kind of an octave of these planets, but I would encourage you to focus your thinking and your efforts on the traditional planets. Apart from anything else, it keeps things neater and simpler. So I've got the signs aligned in their pairs with their ruling planets. Now the other thing you probably notice about this, and given that the series is called Chakras to the Stars, this upper column or middle column going up the way looks very similar, and in fact has been color coded to be very reminiscent of the chakra system, starting from the red root chakra at the bottom and then moving up, 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 up. Now, what you might also notice is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chakras. Now, I know that most of you will go, but there are 7 chakras. There are actually many more than 7 chakras in most philosophies, but there are 7 main chakras that many of us know about. And certainly in the way that the chakra system has become blended with more modern thinking, we tend to think in terms of 7 chakras. Why are there only 6? Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you might think, aha, but there's not 6, there are 7, because look up here, we've got the sun and the moon, so that must be the 6th and 7th chakra. It's not. This is the 6th chakra. Chakra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll get to why there are 2 planets in that chakra in a moment. But just know that these symbols relate to the first 6 chakras. They don't relate to the crown chakra, and the reason for that is that the crown chakra is the transcendent chakra. So this is the chakra where, one way of saying it is at the level of that chakra, the crown chakra, you cease to exist. You cease to be. You are one with everything. You are one with the universe. There is not even a concept of you and one in the universe. It's just all, wow, just completely blended together in this fantastic non-dual wonderfulness. This is about, Chakras to the Stars is about the inner zodiac of the person, and the person stops there. We're at the transpersonal level beyond that, but we're still at the personal level when we're dealing with the third eye chakra. And this is why there are 2 polarities there, because there are actually 2 chakras in the third eye system. And I'm not going to go into all of the philosophy of this because it's a bit too complicated and I don't know enough about it to be able to do it. But one of the ways of understanding this is to know that in terms of currents of energy through the chakra system, one school of thought says that through the kind of yin channel and through the Chandra chakra, which is like the feminine yin polarity of the third eye chakra, at the back of the skull, in comes this current of energy, of life force, of prana, and it weaves its way diagonally through. And actually the way that it does it is it goes through all the negative polarity points. So starts off there, then goes there, then there, then there, then there, then there, and that kind of wonderful weaving motion. And then it goes back the way. It goes back up the chakra system through the positive points, from there to there to there to there to there to there. So you've got this wonderful kind of weaving of energy coming in through the third eye at the back and down through the chakra system and then back up. So that's like 2 currents of energy in a sense. And we'll get onto that in a second. But it then comes out of the third eye in this school of thought. There is a middle channel of energy, and this is the channel of energy through which Kundalini rises. This idea of this rising of this energetic force through each of the chakras and awakening it. And that's in the middle channel. Now, in reality, I say reality, but even in the reality of this philosophy, we're not really talking about 3 separate channels. We're talking about 3 different expressions of the same life force energy. Just like anything, the life force energy can be expressed in a feminine yin way, and I'm using feminine not in the gendered sense, but in the kind of equal to yin sense, and in the masculine yang sense. You can have either of those, or you can have something that is, you might say, a balance between the 2, or a mixture of the 2, or something that is different to, but complementary to both. And consequently, in this philosophy that is expounded by Shelley Trimmer and Ray Grass and others, each of the chakras has different expressions. It has a yin expression, a yang expression, and a combined expression. And that's rather interesting, because that instantly tells you, we tend to think of chakras as single packets of energy, or many of us do. That tells you that the chakras can express themselves in different ways. So your root chakra can be in a, you might say, a centered, balanced place. I struggle a bit with saying centered because it sounds as though somehow it's better. And it's not so much that, it's more that in the center, you're able to move into any expression that is necessary and worthwhile. And in the either side, if you're in the feminine part of the root chakra, you've got further to go to get into the masculine expression. If you're in the middle, you've got all of it to hand. I'm not explaining this terribly well, but I think you probably know what I mean. This idea of we can be at one extreme or one pole or the other, or we can be somewhere in the middle and able to move into either. So each of the chakras have got 3 basic ways of expressing themselves. Now, here is where it all relates together. Because, as you will see, each of the chakras, if we align them in this way, therefore relates to each one of the ruling planets of traditional astrology, and therefore relates to each one of the signs. So the root chakra, Muladhara chakra, relates to Saturn. And that makes sense, because the root chakra is about groundedness, rootedness, tribalism, blood ties, etc. And Saturn is the planet of parameters, boundaries, time, temporality, reality, beginnings and ends, etc. So that makes sense. Then we have the Sacral Chakra, Svadhisthana. By the way, I've got this one as kind of brown and that one as orange. Normally it would be orange and yellow, but yellow does not show up on my whiteboard. So imagine this is kind of dark orange and this is kind of dark yellow. So this is the orange Sacral Chakra, Svadhisthana. It relates to Jupiter. Again, it makes sense. That Sacral Chakra of creativity, sexuality, growth, expression. Jupiter, the planet of gregariousness, growth, joviality, bigness, expression, as juiciness. Juiciness in that chakra, juiciness in Jupiter. They relate. They make sense. You can see why I get kind of excited about this, because the commonalities and the relationships are just so apparent. Then we have Manipura, the solar plexus chakra, the chakra of power, of self-expression. And look what's there. This is Manipura. And it's with Mars. Mars, that forceful planet of self-expression, the directed energy, that coming out of oneself, Mars, solar plexus, power. Then we have the heart chakra. We have the heart chakra. Anahata relates to Venus. What else would it relate to in terms of planet? The planet of love, the planet of connection, connectivity. So the heart chakra relates to Venus. Could this be any more perfect? I think not. And then it gets better. Now I can never say this properly. Vishuddha. That chakra relates to Mercury. The throat chakra, the chakra of expression. Expression relates to Mercury, which is the planet that governs writing and art and communication and expressiveness, etc., etc. And then the third eye, and that polarity of the third eye, the yin and the yang, the entry point and the exit point, of course, moon and sun. So the Chandra chakra at the back, where the energy comes in, the Ajna chakra at the front, the third eye, where the energy comes out and expresses itself. The sun is the planet that relates to, well, the moon is the planet that relates to, if you like, introspective awareness, and the sun is the planet that relates to that extroverted awareness. But it's still, both of them are what you would call very spiritual planets. They're very high level planets. They're very connected to what we're here to do, what we are in relation to God. So it's appropriate that they are up here, really high up. Okay, so I hope I've shown you that there is a very intuitive connection between this very ordered series of ruling planets, ordered because they relate to the order of the zodiac, and the chakra system. So there's a connectivity. So it's apparent, I think, why the two fit together. But here is where it gets really exciting. Because if you just knew nothing else than this, it's kind of exciting. It excites me. It makes me feel kind of like, wow, here's another example of the many and varied ways in which there are connections apparent to us at all times if we just know where to look. But here's what gets really, really exciting, and that is you can plot yourself onto this diagram. You can plot your soul onto this diagram. Remember, I said that your zodiac wheel, your birth chart, is a snapshot of your soul, a symbolic snapshot of your soul. So what you can do is you can take the data from your birth chart and you can transpose it onto this, and then you'll see what happens. Now, what I'm going to suggest you do, if you haven't done it already, that you pause the video, if you like, take a screenshot if you need to, go on my Instagram and you'll find a copy of a similar diagram to this, and print it off or redraw it yourself. But basically, give yourself a diagram a bit like this that has got the signs in this order around the side, and has got the chakras and the planets up in the middle, and has got spaces here, because these spaces are where you're going to plot your soul onto the Chakrastrology diagram. So I've moved over here because I'm left-handed and I need to be on this side of the board in order to be able to write it on. And I'm going to do what I'm going to ask you to do. And that is get your birth chart from astro.com, as I have got mine here. And you're going to plot your planets onto this diagram. And it is really, really simple to do. It is really simple to do. So let's just start with Leo. What you do is you look on your chart and you see what planets are in Leo. Well, look, there's my Leo. There's nothing in my Leo. That does not matter. My Leo is on my, where are we? First, 12th, on my 11th house. So whether there's a planet in there or not, you can do an analysis of what sign is on which house, and that can tell you quite a lot about yourself and about your snapshot of the soul on this. So don't worry if there's no planet there. But if there's no planet there, you don't write anything in there. Simple as that. So then I'm going to look at Virgo. What's in Virgo for Brian? Well, in Virgo, we have actually got one planet, and that is the moon. But I'm also going to just write something else there, because Virgo is on my ascendant. So just out of interest, I'm going to put ASC there to show that Virgo is on my ascendant. So that is Virgo. Then Libra, moving down to Libra. Well, what's in Libra? Now, I said that we're not using the modern planets in the chakra diagram. What you can do, however, you don't have to, but what you can do is put the modern planets if they appear in any of these signs. And Uranus is in Libra for me, so I'm going to put Uranus on there. That's the only planet that I have in Libra. So we're moving down. What have I got in Scorpio? I've got nothing in Scorpio. In Sagittarius, though, I have got Neptune. So good old Neptune is going to go in there. And then moving forward, Capricorn, I've got nothing in Capricorn. What you could do actually, you could put in your nodes. I haven't spoken about the nodes of the moon, but yes, out of interest, I'm just going to put my node in there. We'll not say anything about the node particularly. You can look them up on the internet or in one of your astrology books to find out more about them, but if you want to put your nodes on, you can do. Then in Aquarius, coming around here, I have got Jupiter, so I'm going to put Jupiter in there. And then moving up to Pisces, what have I got in Pisces? I have got Mars. Very fiery planet in a very watery sign. That's kind of interesting for me. In Aries, the only fire sign I have anything in is Aries, and what I have in there is Chiron. So that's interesting. There's quite a few planets to come, as you can probably tell. Taurus, again, I don't have anything in Taurus by way of planets. And then, Gemini. I am a Gemini, so of course I've got the Sun in Gemini, but I also have Jupiter in Gemini. So I'm going to put Jupiter in there too. And then I have also got in Cancer, I have got two planets. I have got Mars and I've got Mercury. Okay, so I'm just double checking to make sure that I have not missed anything, and no, I think I have got everything. Actually, I have missed one. The eagle-eyed among you will have spotted that there was no Pluto on my chart, and my Pluto is in Libra. Now, those of you who are familiar with astrology and would want to do this, could do this if you wanted. You could, next to each of your planets, make a note of which house they were in. So I might, for example, say, well, my Pluto is in the first house and so is my moon, and my sun is in the 9th house and so is Saturn, etc, etc. So you could do that if you wanted. You don't have to. We're not really using houses in this particular analysis, but you could if you're interested in doing that and you wanted to. But look what I have. I now have my planets. In fact, let me take the houses out so I don't confuse you or indeed myself. And I'm going to take out anything that's not a planet. So I'm taking out the ascendant, I'm taking out the nodes of the moon. Okay, so if we're just looking at planets, what does this tell me? Well, it tells me what I already know. I know that I've got Mercury and I've got Venus in Cancer, but look where else I've got them. I have also got them in relation to my third eye chakra, because that's where they fall on the diagram. I've got them in the third eye chakra, particularly and specifically in terms of the back of the third eye chakra in relation to Chandra, because they're both in Cancer. They're not in Leo. If they were in Leo, it would be more relating to the Ajna chakra, or the Ajna part of the third eye. I know that I've got my Sun and my Mercury in Gemini. but I've also got it in relation to my throat chakra in Vishuddha. Now here's what's particularly interesting to me, and this is just, I'm giving this as an example. The throat chakra is a major chakra for me. Here's why. One is, the sun is there. So the sun, of course, is very important in your chart. It's very self-defining. That's one reason. The other reason is that Mercury is related to this chakra, and Mercury is also my chart's ruling planet, because my Virgo is my ascendant, and the planet that rules the ascendant is the planet that rules the whole of the chart. So Mercury is very important in my chart. Mercury also appears in Cancer, and is related to Venus. So I've got, between these planets, they're quite close together in Gemini and Cancer, I've got quite a powerful group of planets all in this area. And therefore it's no surprise that I'm interested in communication, I'm interested in writing, I'm interested in thinking. A lot of my communication is about communicating information and ideas to people. Mercury is very important, and this helps me see that. One of the things that's also interesting to me is very often if I get tense or stressed or ill or imbalanced, one of the first things that goes is my throat. So I can lose my voice, I can get very hoarse, I can get very congested, I can almost have trouble breathing. You know, that can be where I first see or sense that something is not right, that my equilibrium is off, because my Mercury is so vital to me that it manifests or can manifest as issues in this area if I'm not careful. So I know that I have got Pluto and Uranus in Libra, but I've also got them in relation to my heart chakra. And there are probably things I could say about that, but they're quite personal things, so I won't. Just to say that that is a meaningful combination for me in relation to my heart chakra. Chiron is in Aries, and therefore, again, this is an interesting one because, you know, I don't have very much fire in my chart. And that kind of makes sense to me because I wouldn't describe myself as a fiery person particularly. That's not really what my energy is about. But at the same time, Chiron, of course, is the asteroid that relates to healing, the wounded healer. Where it sits in your chart can be quite powerful, and therefore it's not as though fieriness is not something that I'm aware of. It's just that I have a particular view on how to use it and when to use it and what it means for me. And of course my Mars, although it's in Pisces, is in the Jupiterian, the juicy kind of expressive part. Svadhisthana, the expressive Sacral Chakra. So that kind of balances things a little bit for me. So I'm not the kind of person, I rarely become angry or overtly aggressive, and I'm not a fighty kind of person, certainly not in the physical sense. I can certainly hold my own verbally and intellectually if I have to, but I am very unlikely to get roused enough to want to punch somebody's lights out or anything, because my Mars is kind of tempered by being in the watery sign of Pisces. However, what can happen to me is I can simmer slowly. If something bugs me or annoys me, it's like my Mars is in Pisces and it's making the sea boil. So there's that. And then, of course, down here in my rooted chakra, I have got Jupiter in relation to Aquarius. So Jupiter is relating to Saturn, and that's kind of very interesting to me because in traditional astrology, they are known as the greater malefic and the greater benefic. The greater malefic being seen as the constrictor, being quite a difficult planet. And, you know, your root chakra is about the constriction of who you are in this world. It's the opposite of that transcendent, higher up crown chakra, or even the third eye chakra. It's rootedness, it's tribalism. But I've got it offset by Jupiter, which is openness, expressiveness, joviality. And I think this is a good indication of why I find it difficult to take almost anything seriously. Not that I go around laughing at everything all the time, but I usually can see the humour in most things, and well, it affords me a kind of hopefulness, even in dark times, I would say. So, that is a very quick canter through how you can put together your chakras and your star signs, your astrology signs, and your planets in a way that makes sense. So, just to reiterate, the ruling planets relate to pairs of signs. This diagram you can use to then chart yourself, your planets into them, and the ruling planets relate to the first 6 chakras. So you can find out which planets are activating which chakras within your birth chart. There's lots more that can be said about this, but I think that's enough to be going on with, because if you did nothing else but got this blank diagram that I described to you a little while ago, got your birth chart and plotted your planets onto this, then you would be able to tell quite a lot about where your energies are flowing within you, what's happening within your inner zodiac. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to ask you, as your homework, should you choose to accept it, is to do exactly that. Draw a diagram like this, get your birth chart, and plot your planets into each of the signs so you find out which chakras are being activated. And if you feel up to it, feel free to post what you find out below if you've got any observations about your own experience, or you might want to make a video about how you got on doing this very thing. Any and all of those things would be very welcome. And just a reminder, if you want to know more about this, then there are essays in both of Ray Grass's books, Under a Sacred Sky and The Waking Dream. And I think probably if you Google Ray Grass and chakras, you probably can find those essays on his website as well. And then also this book, Infinity of Gods, Ray Grass's interview with Shelley Trimmer. The chakra stuff is in there as well, and lots of other interesting things. So I hope that that has been interesting to you. I'm not proposing to go into chakra by chakra, planet by planet analysis, because the truth of the matter is there's lots of information about each of the chakras available on the internet and elsewhere, and lots of information about each of the signs and each of the planets. So I know that with that information and this basic framework, you can put together your own chakric analysis and take your chakras to the stars.